Hello everyone. Today we are going to study about probability sampling and non-probability sampling and its types. To begin with, let us start with the non-probability sampling meaning. It is a method or a technique in which the researcher selects the sample based on subjective judgment rather than the random selection. In this method, all members of the population have a chance to participate in the study. It is not specific to a group, but here all are invited to be a part of the sampling, and they can contribute in making the research. They can contribute in making the research effective and efficient. So, what are the types of sampling? Non-probability sampling. Hello everyone. Today we are going to study about the non-probability sampling and the types of non-probability sampling. To begin with, let us start with the non-probability sampling. A non-probability sampling is nothing but a method or a technique in which the researcher selects the sample based on the subjective judgment or random selection. In simple words, here all the members of the population have a chance to participate in the study, but it depends upon the researcher that will he select them or not. Likewise, a non-probability sampling methods are further classified into different types, such as convenience sampling, consecutive sampling, quota sampling, judgmental sampling, and snowball sampling. So let us discuss all these types of non-probability sampling. The first one is convenience sampling. A convenience sampling is the method in which the samples are selected from a population directly because they are the conveniently available for the researcher. The samples are easy to select, and the researcher did not choose the sample that outline the entire population, which means in this sample the entire population is not included, but still he can find a conclusion. Example, in researching customer support service in a particular region, we can ask our few customers to complete a survey on the product after the purchase or before the purchase and after the service before the service. Likewise, this is a convenient way to collect the data. Still, as we only surveyed customer taking the same product at the same time, the sample is not representative of all the customers in that area, and similarly, a consecutive sampling is similar to a convincing sampling with a slight variation. The researchers picks a single person or a group of people for sampling. Then the researcher researches for a period of time to analyze the result and move to another group if needed. The next one is purposive or judgmental sampling. As the name says, it is a sample that are selected only based on the researcher's knowledge to whom the researcher is familiar. As their knowledge is instrumental in creating the samples, there are chances of obtaining highly accurate answers with a minimum marginal error, which means here the chances of occurrence of error are very minimal, and it is also known as judgmental or authoritative sampling. The last one is snowball sampling. A snowball sampling is also known as a chain referral sampling technique. In this method, the samples have traits that are difficult to find. So each identifies members of a population and asks to find the other sampling unit. Those sampling units are also belong to the same targeted group, such as students. When a students take a survey, they ask other students or friends to take the same survey and to share their opinion on the basis of the questions or topics. The next one is quota sampling. In this quota sampling, A researcher forms a sample that involves the individual to represent the population based on specific traits or qualities. Here, a researcher chooses the samples that subsets that brings the useful collection of data and that generalize the entire populations. The next one is probability sampling. A probability sampling method utilizes some form of random selection. In this method, all the eligible individuals have a chance of selecting the sample from the whole sample space, which means there is a random sampling selection. This method is more time consuming and expensive than the non probability sampling method. The benefit of using probability sampling is that it guarantees the sample that should be the representative of the population. Here, some of the sampling types. These are classified such as simple random sampling, systematic sampling, stratified sampling, and cluster sampling. So let us discuss the different types of probability sampling methods along with illustrative examples here in detail. Simple random sampling. In simple random sampling, it is a technique where every item in the population has an equal and likely chance of being selected in the sample. Since the item selection entirely depends upon the chance, this method is known as method of chance selection. As the sample size is large and the item is chosen randomly, it is known as representative sampling. For an example, suppose if we want to select a sample, random sample based on 200 students from a school, we can assign a number to every student in the school database from 1 to 500 and use a random number of generator to select a sample of 200 members. It will be a random and effective. The next one is systematic sampling. In this systematic sampling, as the name says, the items are selected from a targeted population by selecting the random selection point and along with it, selecting the other methods after a fixed sample interval. It is calculated by dividing the total population size by a desired population. Let us understand with a small example. Suppose the name of 300 students of a school are sorted in the reverse alphabetical order. To select a sample in a systematic sampling method, we have to choose some 15 students by randomly selecting a starting number, for example, 5. From 5 onwards, we will select every 15% from the sorted list. Finally, we can end up with a sample of some students. Next one is stratified sampling. In a stratified sampling method, the total population is divided into smaller groups to complete the sampling process. The small group is formed based on a few characteristics in the population. After separating those population into a smaller group, the stratifications randomly select the sample. For example, suppose there are three bags A, B, and C, and each have different balls in it. Bag A contains 50 balls, bag B contains 100 balls, and bag C contains 200 balls. We have to choose a sample of balls from each bag proportionately. Suppose 5 balls from A, 10 balls from B, and 20 balls from C. Likewise, we select the stratified sampling. The next one and last one is cluster sampling. In the cluster sampling method, the cluster or group of sample are formed from the population set. The groups have smaller significatory characteristics. Also, they have an equal chance of being a part of the sample. This method uses simple random sampling for the cluster of population. Let us understand this by a short example. An educational institute has 10 branches across the country with almost the number of students. If we want to collect some data regarding facilities and other things in those colleges, we can't travel to every unit to collect the required data. Hence, we can use random sampling to select 3 or 4 branches as clusters. All these 4 methods can be understood in a better manner with the help of the figures. The figure contains various examples of how the samples will be selected from the population using different techniques. And in cluster sampling, already there will be a sample. To analyze properly, we will further divide the samples into clusters, which means small groups. Likewise, we had 10 colleges and we randomly choose 3 or 4 branches of colleges to visit and collect the data from the students. Thank you so much for your valuable time.